Coach. How we doing today?
Doing great. Another day, another dollar.
Another day, another dollar, another Dame Dollar. Who we're not speaking about him much today, but I just want to honorably mention he's not going to be starting at the beginning of the playoffs, which is kind of sad.
He got some blood
He
clot
got some
problems,
things going on. But hey, Coach, how was your day yesterday?
Oh well, you know what? For the most part, it was great. I was in attendance for the abysmal Bulls versus Miami Heat playing game.
Were you now?
I was.
Wow.
I was having a good time. You know, pregame was fun. They had some cool things going on in the atrium. A little party. You know, they had 50% off Corona, which was a little nice. I think they knew we were gonna need it that night, so they hooked us up with that. But nah, I mean, it was fun up until tip off. You know what I mean? Just terrible game overall. I actually ended up leaving early and I beat the traffic. So
that's always good. Yeah. It's always good to be
proud of myself for that because I've never had to do that before. I usually sit it to the end, even when we're up or if we're down. I usually try to stay, but I'm like, Caleb was at the game. Caleb left, so I'm gonna follow the leader. So
that's pretty much how it goes. Follow your quarterback.
Yep.
But yeah, I saw the game. Wasn't I will say I was surprised by the way that they lost. I guess I wasn't necessarily too surprised that they did lose, saying that our history with Miami in the play-in has been that we've lost multiple times against them. But I did think that maybe without Jimmy they would have a chance. But we'll get into that later on because clearly coaching matters.
Oh, it sure does.
Coaching matters. And as we've seen so many things happen to coaches, yesterday was a prime example of what it looks like when you have good coaching all around, actually.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, let's
get into the show. Before we get into the halftime give and go, I want to quickly just shout out the fact that the WNBA draft did happen, and the Chicago Sky was able to get Haley Van Lith for the 11th pick, Coach. Yeah. Just really quickly, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, another, I'd say we're more top prospects in the draft that fell to 11th to Chicago. You know, in the NBA draft, it was Modest. In the WNBA, it's Haley Van Lith. I've always been a fan of her game. I thought she was solid in LSU, when Angel Reese was there and they had that whole run going. I thought she played great at TCU. No doubt that she's going to belong in this league. I think she has the talent. She's a very good guard and also scorer. And I think she's going to fit right in with what the Sky are trying to do. The Sky has some size. I think they did need some guard play. And, I'm sure everybody's happy that Haley Van Lith is a part of the squad and reuniting with Angel Reese. I'm sure people are excited for that, too.
Yeah, I'm happy about it. I think she has a bright future ahead for her with the Chicago Sky. It's good to know that you're going to be playing with people that you've already played before, so you got a nice rapport with them. And like you said, the big man relationship is already set up between Angel Reese and Cardozo. Now it's time to shore up that guard play for the Chicago Sky.
Absolutely.
All right, let's go ahead and get into the halftime give and go, Coach. You ready?
Yes, sir.
30 seconds. That's all we need for every topic. Like you know at home, you know how this goes. First up, Denver secures the 4th seed in the Western Conference. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was kind of just luck of the draw. Their last 10 games, they're 5-5, so not like they've been playing tremendous basketball to reach this 4th seed.
Right.
It was kind of just tiebreaker stuff that occurred earlier in the year. And yeah, I mean, getting the 4th seed, they match up with the Clippers now, who are the 5 seed in the first round. I think that's a pretty favorable matchup if I'm the Denver Nuggets.
To match up with the Clippers.
Yes. I don't think the Clippers are gonna have any answer for Jokic and Cast. I think it should be a relatively easy series for Denver. And I mean, maybe it'll be a little morale boost, after losing Mike Malone and their GM. And, if they could pull out like a pretty solid and easy kind of 4-0 sweep or 4-1, series win, I think it would give them some solid confidence going into the next round and possibly into the next year.
All right. All right, moving on to the next topic in the halftime give and go. The Pistons are back in the playoffs. I never thought I would be in a situation where I would say, well, Detroit basketball got it right, but Detroit basketball got it right. Their young team has developed, learned how to work together, got a good coach in there that's really been coaching them and teaching them how to play together, how to play hard, how to give it your all every single night, and how to minimize turnovers and find themselves in situations where they're playing winning basketball more than they're playing losing basketball. So I want to give a shout out to Detroit basketball. I want to give a shout out to, I believe, JB Bickerstaff is their coach, who left Cleveland, turned them around, and I guess got fired because he wasn't innovative enough. Who knows?
Yep.
But he went to Detroit his first season. And have gotten them in the playoffs and gotten them in a situation where Detroit basketball looks like it's up on the up and up, and they're a very young and fiery team. So I'm interested to see how they do in the playoffs. But congratulations to all the people from the D and to the Detroit basketball team. You will never hear me say congratulations again because I am a Chicago Bulls fan, but because this is a podcast and we have to be objective, I will give a little bit of love to the Pistons, but as always, it's fuck the Pistons. Included in that, I want to talk about the Phoenix Suns, another team. Well, I won't necessarily say fuck them because I have nothing against them, but I will say they need to get their shit together, and we'll dive into that a little bit further as we get into the show. But the Phoenix Suns don't make the playoffs this year with a trio of Bradley Beal, Devin Booker, and Kevin Durant. At some point, you have to ask yourself, either the players just don't care about basketball, either the organization doesn't know how to pick coaches, or they don't know how to structure a good actual roster with competence and comprehensible play. Could it be all three being the issue? We'll talk about that later. But as of right now, the Phoenix Suns not being in the playoffs is a complete letdown, and I'm sure their owner and the fan base is pretty much sitting around going, what the hell is happening right now?
Yeah, no doubt. Moving on to the next topic, Paige Beckers, kind of going back into the WNBA draft. Of course, she's the non-negotiable kind of unanimous pick for the number one pick. Rightfully so, gets drafted to the Dallas Wings.
Yep.
They definitely needed a lot of help there, and I think Paige Beckers is one of those people that comes into a franchise and could turn it around relatively quickly. Kind of how Caitlin Clark came onto the scene for the Indiana Fever, and now they're getting scheduled. Like, their game against the Chicago Sky in July is going to be played at the United Center. Yeah. I think that's how impactful Paige Beckers could be in the WNBA as well. No doubt about it. And she deserves to be here. You know what I mean? She college basketball legend at this point. Of course, winning the national championship this year with UConn, and now transitioning over to the WNBA. I'm excited to see what she could do for Dallas, and hopefully for many years to come, and see some great battles between her and Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark and all these other great players in the league right now, especially the younger ones. So I'm excited to see that. Moving on to the next thing, kind of throwing it back to the Phoenix Suns. Mike Budenholzer gets fired. All I'm gonna say is this: Kevin Durant, you are like a head coach killer. You are one of the main reasons why these head coaches be getting fired, like when you're on the team, man. It's insane. Mike Budenholzer is one of the more respected coaches in the league, I would say.
He is.
Him being with Milwaukee for so many years, and the success they had there with that group, and then ultimately them moving on and him coming to Phoenix, people were like, oh, wow, this is actually going to be a good fit for Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and Bradley Beal, but I guess not. I just think it's kind of unfortunate for Mike. Yeah, this first year wasn't necessarily the greatest from him or from the team, but, I mean, this is going to be Phoenix's, they've had 3 head coaches in 3 seasons, so that's no way to run a basketball team or any organization, a matter of fact, and yeah, I mean, kind of, was I surprised? No. Phoenix seems like a very dysfunctional basketball franchise at this point.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And last on the halftime give and go, David Griffin, the president of operations for the New Orleans Pelicans, or should I say, former president of operations for the New Orleans Pelicans, has been fired. Look, I said a few episodes ago, we had the New Orleans Pelicans on our Stay Out the Kitchen portion, and I was saying then that the New Orleans Pelicans needed to figure some things out. Whether it was figuring things out with Zion, whether it was trading Brandon Ingram, and all these different things. I was saying that New Orleans had a short window on figuring things out and fixing things, because if they didn't, they were going to find themselves in a very compromised situation, because they had to pay Brandon Ingram, which we, find out they ended up trading him. And then they still got to figure out what's going on with Zion. But now it seems that the New Orleans Pelicans have decided that they no longer trust David Griffin to be able to lead them in the right direction. And he has now been relieved of his duties. And as an honorable mention, it is now proven that, or now been shown that Joe Dumars will now take over as the president of operations for the New Orleans Pelicans, who formerly was part of, I guess, helping or trying to steer the change for the Detroit Pistons. But I will know that he is a former two-time NBA champion as a player with the Detroit Pistons. All right, that has been the halftime give and go. Now you ready to play our game, Coach?
Let's do it, man. Our
favorite game. Who's cooking and who should stay the out the kitchen? Number one on Who's Cooking. I'm ready to see what this guy's going to do in the playoffs. They're calling him MVP again, even though I don't think he deserves it. Nikola Jokic. Hell of a season for Nikola. What more can you really say about this guy? He's doing everything he needs to do on the court. He's helping his teammates. He's been a winning player. He's making winning plays. He's making guys around him better. He's even fucking coaching at this point.
Yeah.
So there's nothing bad that you can say about Nikola as far as what he can bring to the table and what he will offer as a player and his status in the game. I just think at this point, I think Nikola has hit his ceiling personally as an individual performer, and I think that he potentially has hit his ceiling with this current Denver team. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, no doubt he's had a phenomenal year. Third in points per game, third in rebounds per game, second in assists per game, and also being second in steals per game. He's been an absolute stat sheet stuffer this year. As has been in years past, but he was the third player to average a triple double in NBA history throughout the course of the season. And there's of course some debate on whether or not he deserves MVP, and is Shea genuinely having the most phenomenal season, or is the NBA media just having voter fatigue? Is Jokic deserving of it? There's no telling. I think everybody has their own opinion on that, but I think regardless of what their opinion is, we could all agree on that Jokic has had an absolute insane year.
Yep.
And kind of with the whole dysfunction that's been going on there as well, with Mike Malone getting fired, 4 games before the end of the season, the GM also being moved on from, and Jokic still putting up all these tremendous numbers, and them being the 4th seed and possibly having a solid little first round here to get by to the second. Yeah, I mean, I've always been a solid fan of Jokic. I like his game. He's annoying at times, in my opinion, with the way he plays, but that's just because he's just so talented. And, seeing that he isn't the most athletic guy really makes you wonder, like, damn, like, how the heck is he able to do all this stuff, against this top NBA talent? But, that just shows the actual true skill set that the man has. So, yeah, it's been a great season to watch.
Yeah, couldn't say more. Moving on to who else is cooking. I just want to give a little love to the Los Angeles Clippers, because they rarely ever get love, but they were looking like a team that was headed in the wrong direction for the fair amount of the season. It felt like James Harden was having to carry the show by himself, which he did, I guess, in a way, as successful as he could. And then when Kawhi returned, they became a whole different team.
Yep.
And then they were able to also add in Ben Simmons. They got Bogdanovich, which was a major big pickup. Those two pickups were crazy additions to this team because Ben Simmons spells Harden from having to necessarily handle ball handling duties, and then Harden can transition back into a natural scorer while simultaneously Ben Simmons is able to play 1 through 5 and help and switch and do all these type of things whenever Los Angeles wants to play a little bit of small ball. And then Bogdanovich is just a bucket. You know what I'm saying? He's just a great bucket that they picked up. And I'm gonna say it right now. I will not be surprised if you find the Los Angeles Clippers in the Western Conference Finals for the first time in their franchise history.
Okay.
And I won't be surprised if they make the NBA Finals. I'm saying on record that I think the Los Angeles Clippers is the most dangerous team in the playoffs.
Okay.
There is no team more dangerous than them.
Yeah, interesting.
Yep.
I could see why you say that too, because we know how impactful Kawhi Leonard could be when he is healthy, and he's been playing as of late.
Yep.
And he's been looking pretty damn good as
Yep.
he usually is. And like you mentioned with the additions of Ben Simmons and Bogdanovich and James Harden playing at an exceptional level, and kind of like their whole roster buildup, with the coaching of Tyronn Lue as well.
And Jeff Van Gundy helping.
Yeah,
He's
exactly. You know what I mean? It is a very well-oiled machine, and all pistons are going, and they're running, and they're fully executing, and no doubt about it. I think it's an interesting take, saying Western Conference Finals or NBA Finals, but I wouldn't necessarily be surprised either because, in their last 10, 9-1, right? I mean, they've been on an absolute heater since Kawhi Leonard has come back, because before that, we kind of thought they would even slip out of the play-in at some points, and here they are. They were staying consistent, made it all the way up to the 5 seed, towards the end of the season, and it's gonna be a very fun playoff to watch, especially with this first round matchup. I think it's gonna be a real good one.
All right, moving on to our favorite part of the game: who should stay the fuck out the kitchen? And just kind of reiterating on some of the things we touched in the halftime give and go. First up on who should stay the fuck out the kitchen and completely leave the fucking house and go find another neighborhood to live in: the New Orleans Pelicans. Look, I've said it before and I'm gonna say it again. You guys have no direction. You guys don't know what the fuck you're doing. This is probably one of the most incompetent teams in the NBA right now. I don't know exactly what their plan is, but I have read some things where it says 2 things on the agenda is to maintain and retain head coach Willie Green, but the next thing on the agenda is to trade Zion Williamson. And I guess maybe David Griffin was unwilling to do it. Maybe that's the reason why he got fired. But bringing in somebody like Joe Dumars or somebody who is tough-nosed, is all about guys putting their best effort forward. No bullshit. Not going to tolerate, guys not giving their all in their best effort. Sort of like a Black Pat Riley in a way. Somebody that's going to be able to establish culture, winning culture. And so I do like them picking up Joe Dumars because it at least shows that maybe they're going to try to be competent. But for right now, Joe Dumars is in a situation where this team has been kicked out, moved out the kitchen, moved out the neighborhood, and before they can get entry back into the gated community, they're going to have to apologize for their behavior. Apologize for being such a fucking travesty to this community, and they're gonna have to show and prove that they've gotten their act together and they've learned how to be a fucking NBA organization. So, with that being said, what are your thoughts on the New Orleans Pelicans?
Yeah, I mean, Joe Dumars has his work cut out for him.
Yeah,
he's
to say the least.
He's gonna have a lot of difficult decisions to make. A lot of revamping and rebuilding that needs to occur as well. And, he has a tall task ahead of him. No doubt about it. I think one of the tougher decisions will be to trade Zion Williamson. And I think I agree with you on the point that I just think David Griffin wasn't necessarily a fan or necessarily in favor of making that deal. And I think Joe Dumars will come right in and he won't give one fuck. He'll do it in a second.
Yeah.
I think as soon as he finds a suitable trade partner and a solid deal, possibly around the NBA draft, maybe it's for a draft pick, a high draft pick, that deal occurs. So yeah, it's kind of unfortunate to see seeing what's happened with New Orleans. I was kind of high on them, when they had the roster of like Brandon Ingram, Zion Williamson, DeJounte Murray. I'm like, okay, this team,
CJ McCollum.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
This team should make a little bit of noise, and it just hasn't.
They got hit with a lot of injuries.
Yeah, the injury plague is definitely real in New Orleans. So that's one part of it, but also the inconsistency is a big part of it as well.
Yeah.
So no, definitely looking forward to seeing what Joe Dumars can do, because I think New Orleans is a great market for basketball. I think they deserve a winning product over there. And I think they have like some key trade pieces that could be moved and, pawned around to actually make this thing functional again,
Right.
because it's not at all.
Yeah. All right, moving on to the last part and last team that should stay completely the fuck out the kitchen and move out the community and probably move to a whole fucking state, another state. Probably get the fuck out of here. Just get out the country. The Phoenix Suns. I don't know how much more incompetency they can show as an organization. New owner. We're being aggressive. We want KD. We want all this stuff. We're putting together this formidable roster that should get us a winning team. We're raising ticket prices. All of this hoopla going around the Phoenix Suns, and you show up and just give a complete dud. KD probably had his worst season ever I won't say worst season ever, but he's probably had one of the worst seasons he had since his rookie season. Bradley Beal is absolutely a shell of himself. He's nowhere looking like what he did in Washington, and Devin Booker is still the same old Devin Booker. Nothing has changed about Devin Booker much. I think, unfortunately, we're going to get back to having that conversation about Devin Booker not being a guy that can help you go anywhere. He'll be a great bucket getter. He can score points. And arguably, you might want to have that conversation about KD. I'm hesitant to have that conversation about KD because I've seen what he can do by himself. I've seen what he did with Golden State and how he elevated them to a whole nother level. And I saw what he did in Brooklyn when James Harden and Kyrie Irving was hurt and how he almost was able to beat Milwaukee. If his feet wasn't so goddamn big, that whole situation in Milwaukee could have been different. Milwaukee probably never would have won a championship, and we might be having a whole different conversation about Giannis. But now that Giannis is a champion and he's a made man, we don't have that conversation. But if KD was just maybe an inch size smaller with his feet, we're having a whole different conversation. We might be looking at Kevin Durant differently too, because who's to say that Brooklyn doesn't get past Milwaukee, get to the NBA Finals, and they play Phoenix? And maybe James Harden returns, maybe Kyrie Irving returns, who knows? And now we're looking at Brooklyn in the finals with KD against Devin Booker and Chris Paul. And they pull that out. Who's to say? So history is crazy like that, but Phoenix, they are in a situation where I don't even know if they can fix this. You got Bradley Beal, who has a no-trade clause. You got Devin Booker, who you probably don't want to trade, but you probably get the most for him. And then you got an aged KD who you could probably still get a little bit for, but you probably won't get everything you're looking for from a KD trade. So they're in a fucked up trick bag, and they don't have assets. They don't have picks. They just got a bunch of they got two old guys and a nice young superstar that they got to figure this shit out with. And so they have their work cut out for them. I don't know if they're going to completely overhaul this team, but they need to go to a whole nother state and figure this shit out. Just fucking leave everything behind. Like, don't take shit, because it could be bad juju with that shit.
Very
Just
true.
leave everything behind and start the fuck over somewhere else. Even fuck it, change your name too while you at it.
Yeah, I mean, I have no rebuttal there. It has been kind of unfortunate to see this play out, because you do see a team constructed like they have been, with the superstar talent that they had, or I guess I say had because it doesn't really have. It should be
That's a good point.
You know what I mean? But like like you mentioned, I think Kevin Durant's year hasn't necessarily been a very good one. I think it's been very lackluster. I think Devin Booker is one of the more premier players in the league. I feel like that's somebody Phoenix should be building around still.
Okay.
I know they could get a solid, like, good value from him from a trade, but they would only do that if they were looking to completely rebuild. And just with this ownership and how they've kind of ran things ever since they came onto the scene, I kind of find that very unlikely and happening that they're gonna rebuild anytime soon.
Okay.
Simply because Devin Booker's still on the younger end. Of his career, of his prime, you could say. Kevin Durant will be moved probably this offseason. I think he will be traded. Where? I have no idea. Bradley Beal is going to, I guess, retire as a Phoenix Sun because nobody's going to want that contract, for one. For two, he's got a no-trade clause.
Yeah.
So why is he going to get moved somewhere where he knows he's not going to play, making all that money, versus staying in Phoenix and actually being able to get play time? Like, I think that's a big part of him, and he's got a big ego. You know what I mean? Like, he had a very bad relationship with Mike Budenholzer because at some point of the season, Mike Budenholzer told him to play more like Drew Holiday, and he's like, "Don't you ever tell me to play like another player again. That shit's disrespectful as hell."
Is that what was the issue between Bradley Beal and Budenholzer?
Yep, that is exactly what it was, and I think to a certain extent, it's like, yeah, you shouldn't necessarily be telling a $50 million player to play like a role player, but at the same time, it's coming from somewhere, and I think Bradley Beal has had a very hard time in accepting that he just isn't the same Bradley Beal.
Or maybe you just have a hard time accepting that between Devin Booker, KD, and himself, he's the third wheel. I think his ego is not allowing him to accept the fact that...
I think he's had an easier time with that. I think he's just having a really difficult time in realizing that he's just... his first step isn't the same. The way his shot comes off of his fingertips isn't the same.
So you don't think he's the same Bradley Beal from Washington?
No, and I think he's having a hard time accepting that because realizing that even. I think he still believes he could do all those same things.
I think he still can. I just think
it's
just a matter of the fact that he won't get that opportunity to do it next to KD and Devin Booker. You're not going to give him the ball when you got KD and Devin Booker on your team. And that's why Budenholzer would say, that's why Budenholzer would request, I need you to be more like Drew than I need you to be more concerned to be Bradley Beal in Washington. Because I got KD, I got Devin Booker. I don't need you to be that type of scorer. I need you to be a defensive playmaker and three-point specialist, which you can do if you accept that role, but you're not accepting that role because you feel like in your mind you're just as dangerous or just as viable as an option as KD and Devin Booker, which I'm not saying he's not, but what I'm saying is if you already have your young superstar in Devin. KD is KD, Bradley Beal and KD. So really what you're arguing is between Devin Booker and Bradley Beal, who should be the one to take a back seat? Are you telling your young superstar to take the back seat?
Never.
Probably not. So because of that, Bradley Beal by default is being asked to take the back seat, and I think that's what he was having issues with. His ego wasn't allowing him to say, why should I be taking the back seat to Devin Booker? He ain't proved shit.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? He ain't proved much, and arguably you can say, well, Bradley ain't proved much, but it's just like between us both, who's to say that he's better than me? Who's to say that I shouldn't be? Maybe he should be the one trying to play like Drew Holiday. Besides, he's younger than me anyway.
Yeah.
He should be the one trying to chase and defend and play make and letting me and KD get our thing going. So I think there was conversations that Budenholzer was trying to have that Bradley Beal just wasn't interested in. But I think he still got it. It's just that it ain't gonna work in Phoenix if all three of them are still there.
Yeah, and then the result of that is Budenholzer being moved on from.
And that is how we segue. Look at you, look at you. You on fire today, boy.
You know we're here, man.
And that is how you segue into the halftime report. Yeah. All right. First on the docket for the halftime report, as we have been lightly and eloquently discussing a little bit, but getting right back into it. Mike Budenholzer for the Phoenix Suns is fired. Bud out. He's out of here. Finito. Hasta la vista, baby.
Yep.
He's out of here. I think this is I don't think this is his fault. Let me say that, number one. Number two, this is just what it's like when you're working with a very poor organization at the time. They've ran through 3 coaches who have had winning records. Monty Williams, who got them to a finals appearance and they let him go. Then they had Frank Vogel, who was a former NBA champion coach with the 2020 Lakers team in the bubble. They let him go. Then you bring in another former NBA champion coach with the Milwaukee Bucks and Mike Budenholzer, and you let him go after one season. At some point, we can't blame the coaches. At some point, you arguably can't even blame the players. I think everybody takes a little bit of blame, but I'm putting this mostly on the organization. Mike Budenholzer did not deserve to get fired, in my opinion. I think you're in a situation as Mike, as the coach, where you were trying to do your best with what you had and you were trying to make sense out of the situation. For a good period of people who were basketball analysts and who were looking at the situation, a lot of people believed that this whole Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and Bradley Beal thing wasn't going to work. Similar to how people had takes about how Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan wasn't going to work. And it seems like as much as you want to give critics shit, as much as you want to talk about basketball analysts and say that they don't know what the fuck they're talking about, especially players who love saying shit like that, it seems like maybe people actually know this game just as well as the players. And we can look and evaluate objectively and say, I know you guys might think because these names sound like between the players, I know you guys may think that these names coming together sounds like it'd be a winning team, but you guys are just looking at it from a perspective of, oh, he a hooper just like me, and not understanding the dynamics of how you guys together may or may not coexist well until you actually get into that space. Objectively, as an analyst, as a fan, as a critic, or whatever the fuck you want to call it, I can look back and just judge based upon the game and say, this shit ain't gonna work. And I think Mike Budenholzer was put into a situation where maybe he came in and told the organization, I can make this shit work, right? Because you got to sell yourself. You got to put a pitch together. You got to explain to the team why they should hire you over maybe somebody else. So you probably came in and said, I can make this work. I can fix this. I know you guys got high expectations. I can deliver. I've delivered in Milwaukee, and it was contentious there. I had Giannis, I had his brother, blah, blah, blah. Everything that probably he said probably sounded right. But you can't get the job done when the players just don't fit. Sometimes coaching just ain't enough. And it could be great coaching, Hall of Fame level coaching, and sometimes no matter what, it just don't mix. Like they say, you can't mix water and oil. It just don't work like that. It don't mix. You still see it. You're going to see the oil in the water, but it don't mix. And that's what it is with this situation with Phoenix. There's no coach that's going to come in and fix this situation because these guys just don't work. The only thing that can help this situation with Phoenix is they have to blow it up in some capacity. Somebody has to go. And maybe you only end up with Bradley Beal in Phoenix, and you have to build around that, restructure around that, because he has a no-trade clause. So unless you sending him somewhere where he wants to go, and that team is going to give you scraps for it, and you're going to take it, then Bradley Beal looks like the guy that's going to end up staying in Phoenix. you're probably going to end up in a situation where Kevin Durant is gone and possibly Devin Booker is gone. And whoever's the next coach may have a better chance than any of the previous three coaches to do something. But as long as those three players are together, it doesn't matter who you get as the coach. It could be Phil Jackson. It could be Pat Riley. You could bring back Red Auerbach if you have the power to bring him back and use magic or some wild shit. But there's no coach that can take this team and be successful with them.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with you on that stances. I think it's just been an organizational meltdown at all levels as far as deciding, to bring on Mike Budenholzer and thinking it was going to make an insane change.
Yeah.
Being so oblivious to the fact that this team is not constructed well at all. And I think their high expectations, with firing Mike Budenholzer shows that they do have very high expectations for this team. And that just isn't realistic at this time, because it should be very realistic when you have three guys making $50 million.
Almost. Yeah.
But you don't have any supporting cast around that. What do you have, really? I mean, who do you have? Grayson Allen? You got Yusuf Nurkic? I mean, who else do you really have? Nobody. There is no depth on that team, and that's why you can't just build a team that is so top-heavy. It needs to be a very well-structured team at all levels. Players that fill roles, not just this positional basketball conversation that's been a topic from the last couple of years.
The positionless basketball.
Yeah,
type shit.
I think you need players that fill certain roles, and Phoenix doesn't have that, which is why Phoenix is not successful. You look at a team like Boston, they have specific players that fill specific roles, and that's why they're so successful as a basketball team.
I agree.
So if Phoenix wants any chance of being relevant within the next 10 years, the following things need to happen. Kevin Durant needs to go this offseason. You have to think about moving Devin Booker to maximize his value, because you're not going to win anything with him, unfortunately, unless you make some drastic moves in free agency. You bring on certain guys. I just don't think it's going to happen. Bradley Beal probably remains a Sun because you're not going to get shit back from him for him as far as making any trades or any receiving any draft picks.
Right.
And if you're going to receive any notable draft pick, one that's actually worth something, you're not going to get that, because he's just going to, enforce his no trade clause and not go to a shitty team.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So Phoenix is in a very tough situation. I honestly don't know where it's going to go from here, but they do need those three things to happen for them to at least somewhat stay relevant in this next 10 years, or they're going to go back to the Phoenix Suns of God knows when, you know what I mean? Like the 2010s, where they just didn't have shit. Where they were just bottom tier.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? Before Devin Booker got drafted.
Yeah, before Devin got there, and then post Steve Nash and stuff like that. I got you.
Yeah, that's what I mean. But no, absolutely. I think I feel bad for Mike Budenholzer. I'm sure he came into this job having high expectations for himself as a coach.
Right.
And finishing 36 and 46, 11th place in the West is not where this team should have finished. But again, I don't think it's on Mike. I also don't necessarily think it's on the players, too. I think Devin Booker had a pretty solid year. Kevin Durant, might have had a step back, but he's kind of been on and off of the floor. Bradley Beal is kind of like the one guy you could kind of point to, but at the same time,
he's just an easy scapegoat.
Exactly. So it really is just an organizational meltdown, in my opinion.
Yep. All right, enough on Budenholzer getting fired.
And
go ahead.
Yeah, and three coaches in 3 years. Last 3 seasons have been abysmal for them, right? So, we could go on to another team that's had a pretty abysmal last 3 seasons, can't we, Coach?
Yeah, that's exactly where we were headed. The Chicago Bulls. Arturas and Mark Eversley have been complacent in accepting mediocrity as we want to discuss them. So, we've kind of had this discussion and kind of overlaid some of the things over the last 3 seasons, right? You started off inheriting this team, AK and Mark. They inherit this team. They have all these young pieces, and they decide that they want to start moving young pieces the following offseason. But But the first move was moving Wendell Carter Jr. and I think a couple more pieces and some first round picks for Nikola Vucevic, which at the time was a big move, big splash move. It was quiet, nobody saw it coming. But picking up Vucevic was great in my opinion.
Yeah.
He was a solid big man on the post who could score on the post. In the mid range and had developed a 3-point shot over time. And so he was perfectly suited for what you would consider to be the modern day center. Was he a defensive rim protector? Not really, because he wasn't a shot blocker, but he was a good post defender. So he could defend the post. He just wasn't a shot blocker, right? And so I thought that was a great pickup. Then we get into the offseason, and we're still moving on players. The one that hurt was Lauri Markkanen, in my opinion, because I still think to this day, if you would have kept Lauri Markkanen, this entire Bulls team would have looked completely different with Lauri Markkanen at the power forward position, Vucevic still at the center, having Patrick Williams that you still would have drafted anyway to be a small forward, and then having Lonzo Ball and Zach LaVine as your starting five rounding it out for the guards. So you're looking at a team with Lonzo, Zach, Patrick Williams, Lauri Markkanen, and Vucevic, and that could have been something very dangerous. In my opinion, I think that could have been really nice because it would have relieved some pressure from Patrick Williams having to be a scorer right out the gate, and Lauri, Zach, and Zoe with Vucevic would have been a nice little four-man group to get points on the board and score in that starting lineup.
They can all space the floor as well.
And they can all space the floor as well. But that didn't happen. You moved on from Lauri. You let him go. He blossoms in Utah eventually before he first was in Cleveland. And so you end up in the offseason getting Alex Caruso, which I have no quarrels with. Alex Caruso was wonderful for us, gave us all of the grit and toughness that Chicago fans love to see. But the move, again, that I'll reiterate, I think is what fucked everything up for the Bulls, was trading Thaddeus Young and a few first-round picks to San Antonio for a sign and trade for DeMar. I thought we had got everything we needed when we had Vucevic, Caruso, and we picked up Lonzo Ball. We added Andre Drummond, I think, the following season, and we had Derrick Jones Jr. as well. So when we added those pieces, I thought we had enough, but I think we did an overkill moment when we traded for DeMar DeRozan, thinking that we needed to have this quote-unquote three trio superstar thing because that's how you win in the NBA. But the fallacy in that was that nobody paid attention yet again to how the chemistry would work when you have a guard like Zach LaVine and a guard like DeMar DeRozan who could play completely different from each other. One guy wants to get up and down, run the floor, play fast, and get threes up, and the other guy still thinks it's 1998. Or 2005 and 2007, where you're just slowing the game down. It's a drag-out game, a knuckle-dragging game. He's posting up every single time he gets the basketball from the free throw line and below, going ISO, and just trying to turn around and make a fadeaway shot. Like, come on, man. Like, this is a modern-day NBA. And there was failures from the organization to see that. And then last but not least, you get to this season, and you let DeMar go. You traded Caruso for just Josh Giddey straight up. You don't get anything for DeMar DeRozan because you couldn't find a trade partner for him because no team valued him. Honestly, the Sacramento Kings just took him because it was a nice little storyline to bring DeMar home, sell tickets, and get money in there. And so they did that because of that. But you didn't get anything for DeMar. And then you spent the entirety of the season contemplating whether or not you were going to let Zach LaVine go because, Lord forbid, you still paying this guy $40 million. But now you're about to be in a situation where you're going to pay either Kobe White or Josh Giddey $30 to $40 million for less production consistently than Zach LaVine does. At least Zach LaVine gave you a couple seasons, 3 to 4 seasons of him continually producing and showing you what he could do. Meanwhile, Kobe White can't shoot his way out of a wet paper bag, and Josh Giddey can't shoot for shit anyway. So now you got two guys that you're looking to extend that can only give you about 1 to 2 months of great basketball play per season. When you could have potentially kept Zach LaVine this year, still made the 9th seed, which is what you were going to do anyway, potentially probably beat Miami, get to the playoffs, and still find yourself with a top 14 pick in the lottery.
Yep.
So you could have accomplished all of that in one season and still had a chance to potentially still make the playoffs and actually have a viable chance to be something great. Now that you're playing a faster pace, you remove DeMar, you got Zach playing at an elite level again, scoring over 22 to 23 points per game, shooting 50% from the field, over 50% from the field, over 42% from the three-point line. Like, he was balling. And you let that all go to waste because you wanted to do what? Get role players and Kevin Huerter, Zach Collins, and Trey Jones. Why? Because they were less of a headache. All of a sudden, Zach became a diva. This is my thing about Chicago. We don't fucking enjoy talent. We don't like having talent unless that talent is just conforms. They don't make any quarrels. They don't ask for things. They don't hold the organization accountable for winning. They just sit there and get paid and say nothing and just deal with the circumstances. No great talent wants to be in a situation like that. So I don't know what else is going to happen with the Bulls. I guess right now we're just wishing upon a star like little kids, and we're hoping that they can find a fucking guy in the draft, some young kid that can come and help us do something phenomenal. But that's a fucking crapshoot. You don't know what the fuck you're going to get in the draft. You can get a superstar or you can get a dud. It's all a gamble. But here we are, once again, as Bulls fans, just lathering ourselves up to get fucked.
Oh, shit. All right. Well, yeah, I mean, it really has come full circle now. With this, hot and streaky Bulls team that has kind of played and has been competing since the All-Star break. They're 17-13 since Zach LaVine has left, and that's for whatever reason so much better than 15-17 since Zach LaVine was there. It doesn't really add up as far as why people are so high on this young Bulls team and these assets. Like, in my humble opinion, I don't see Josh Giddey resulting in shit. I think he'll be solid as far as putting up a couple of points a night and rebounds and assists. Maybe that's all you're going to demand from the point guard position. But if that's going to be the case, then you can't have Kobe White, who last night had the same amount of field goals made as turnovers. That is just unacceptable. You cannot go 7 for 20 with 7 turnovers and demand $40 million when your contract extension is going to come up soon here. It just doesn't make sense. He's a very streaky player. He forces a lot of bullshit. And guess what? Is that ever going to change? No. I'm here to break every Bulls fan's heart right now. Kobe White is not going to be better than what he is right now.
Thank you.
This is probably peak Kobe White. Like, we're not going to see a consistent Kobe White. We're not going to see a Kobe White that also playmakes and runs the point guard position. We're not going to see a Kobe White that's going to average 25 to 30 points a night. We're not going to see that.
On 50% shooting from
the absolutely not.
And 40-some percent shooting from the three-point line.
He might get there if he takes 30 shots.
Yeah.
And makes like 12 of them. Maybe. Maybe he'll get there. But is that necessarily efficient in winning basketball? I don't think so.
No.
I mean, honestly, the best thing you really had going for you was Vucevic, right, when you made that trade for him, but hasn't necessarily resulted to anything because you didn't give him anything to work with.
You didn't give him help.
Yeah, you didn't give him any defensive help. You made him guard these 7'2" giants. You made him, chase guys on the perimeter that could shoot as far as the big man position.
Try to out-rebound an entire fucking team by himself.
It's absolutely crazy what has gone on with the Chicago Bulls team. I didn't mind necessarily the Caruso for Giddey trade because I guess if you do get the production you have been getting from Josh Giddey, it's promising. Do I think it's going to be consistent next year? No. I think he's going to revert back to like maybe 14 points a night, 8 rebounds, 6 assists. But hey, I'm cool with that for my point guard position.
Not for $30 million though.
$30 million, still acceptable for me because in today's NBA market and contract market, that's what it's going to look like very, very soon. But for $40 million, which I think he's going to be demanding more so, Absolutely not. And my fear is that Chicago's going to pay him that money, and we're going to put ourselves in salary cap hell once again, and we're not going to be able to dig ourselves out of it. You guys claimed that when we gave Zach LaVine his max contract, we put ourselves in salary cap hell. We'll see what's going to happen when we give Josh Giddey $40 million. You're going to have Kobe White due for an extension. You're going to have Ayo Dosunmu due for an extension.
Yep.
Patrick Williams is almost making $25 million a year. I don't know
Zach
where.
Herter will be due for an extension.
Yeah. Kevin Herter, Zach Collins, Trey Jones, all these guys you just acquired. Which, by the way, I don't think Kevin Herter's that bad for the team. I actually didn't mind him with how he's been playing, but that's just because he could shoot the ball, and we don't really have anybody
him up
else.
As a free agent.
Exactly.
Instead 2 years from now,
instead of trading, your genuine true scorer that could actually efficiently score the ball. Regardless, this team has been very poorly constructed, and also I don't think they have necessarily the right pick at head coach either to make this team work. Was there any way of making this team work? I'm not sure. I think Patrick Williams is an absolute shit show. I think he's going to result to absolutely nothing. I saw that last night in person. He's on the floor, and you don't know he's on the fucking floor. You know how he's on the... You know when he's on the floor...
When he's on the floor.
Yeah.
Like when he's legitimately has fallen on the floor, and you're like, oh, there's that fucking pick we had that can't dribble and can't shoot.
44 in black. Who is that?
That's the shit we
because
drafted.
They were wearing their black jerseys. Oh, yeah. Who's number 44? That's literally what people ask on this. Like, oh, man, it's so frustrating, and I could talk about it for the rest of the episode, but Arturas and Mark, you guys have to make some very, very, very crucial decisions this offseason.
Yeah.
Because if you give Josh Giddey his money, so be it. He better be producing at least 20 a night, at least 10 rebounds and 8 assists a night.
Yeah.
It's got to be something around that for me to be acceptable with that.
Yep.
And you better not even think about giving Kobe White $40 million because he's going to put up the same stat line he did this year for the rest of his career, if not worse.
Yeah.
Because I just think these last 2 years he's had a streaky second half of the season.
And we get so excited about it. But speaking of coaching, going into our last segment for the halftime report, organizational failures, right? All of these coaches, as we see, Coach Bud got fired. Mike Brown was the first to get fired from Sacramento. Mike Malone gets fired 4 games before the playoffs. Taylor Jenkins gets fired 2 weeks before the playoffs. I don't understand what the fuck is going on in the NBA when it comes down to accountability. But it seems like organizations have just decided that before we start talking about us, before we get to the general managers, before we get to the president of operations, before we even discuss players, we're just going to fire coaches for not getting along with this player, or you haven't beaten the top teams in the West, or like whatever the fuck they can find a reason to do, or the relationship within the organization has been rocky over the last couple of seasons. This motherfucker won you the first championship in franchise history. I don't give a fuck how rocky the relationship is. Deal with it. If I was the owner and this motherfucker delivered me a championship, this motherfucker has carte blanche in this bitch. He told you to sit your ass down. Guess what? Sit your ass down.
Yep.
He won me a championship.
Oh, yeah.
I don't give a damn about anything anybody got to say. We don't get along with him. You better find a way to get along.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you don't, you going to be gone before he be gone. He's done. He's delivered. Why the fuck are you firing guys that deliver? Mike Brown brought Sacramento out of the dungeon.
Yes.
Out of the dungeon of NBA hell. Resurrected these motherfuckers like he was God himself and brought them back into some form of viability as a franchise. And you let him go because he wanted to put DeMar DeRozan on or bring DeMar DeRozan off the bench. But because DeMar DeRozan is your new marquee face that you signed to sell tickets, now Mike Brown has to go because the money is more important than actual basketball sense. Yes, you bring DeMar DeRozan off the bench. He's not fast enough to run with De'Aaron Fox and get up and down the court the way we've been playing. He's not fast enough to get up and down with Sabonis and Keegan Murray and Malik Monk. So you bring him off the bench so that he can be your bench superstar to give you the points when those guys go on the bench, when De'Aaron goes on the bench, when Sabonis go on the bench. Now you can bring him in to go against any other bench player in the NBA that he can go out there and kill and get you 18 to 20 points off the bench by himself. Now you're talking about supreme bench production. But no, we got to cater to his ego because he's never come off the bench before. He's been a starter his whole career. Even when he should have never even been a starter in Chicago. When I said if Billy Donovan had any nuts, instead of always coming at Zach LaVine, you should have been telling DeMar DeRozan to be a better player.
Yep.
Play some fucking defense. But no, we cater to wrong players, and then we treat other players like they have to just follow suit. And so you fire coaches because they're demanding guys to be accountable. Mike Budenholzer is trying to demand accountability. He gets the fuck out of there. Taylor Jenkins, he creates a situation where he don't know if he got Ja Morant coming or going. And he puts together an offense that works without Ja Morant. Ja Morant comes back and he's like, I don't have the ball like I used to, so I'm going upstairs. And the front office afraid of losing Ja when they're going to probably trade his ass anyway. You fire the fucking coach when he's doing nothing, but once again, helping Memphis get out of fucking hell and give them consistent winning. It takes a minute to win a championship, but if you got a guy that can help you produce winning results, stick with it. Just figure out the pieces along the way. So I don't know. I don't know if the mandate amongst owners is before shit gets to us and fans think we're the problem, we just firing coaches, carousel. Because at this point, I'm not sure how long these coaches are going to be out, but I'll be damned if Mike Brown doesn't get another job. I'll be damned if Taylor Jenkins doesn't get another job. I'll be damned if Mike Malone doesn't get another job. And I'll be damned if Mike Budenholzer doesn't get a job.
I'll tell you what, man. I'll be damned if Billy Donovan remains head coach after this season for 3 consecutive.
He's a Hall of Fame coach.
Hey, man, that's all right. But three consecutive playing losses to the same team over and over and over
the
again.
Same coach.
And I'll be damned if that man still is the head coach of our freaking franchise when you have your fair pick of any of those 4. You could bring in any of them.
Malone, Bud,
and I think
Taylor
they would
Brown.
They would all make it work. Yeah. I think Jenkins is my lower candidate. You could put whatever order you want for the next 3.
For Brown, I would say Malone would probably be number 1.
Probably. And I would love that. I would love Budenholzer.
I would love Mike Brown too.
I would like Mike Brown.
Yeah. But you're right, Taylor would probably be.
And guess what? You know how it's gonna work going into next year? Billy Donovan's gonna be the head coach. We're gonna have damn near the same roster. We'll have a new rookie that's not gonna play until like after the All-Star break, because that's what happened to Modest. Even though motherfucker was damn near like a top 3 overall pick, and he should have been.
And he should have been starting over Patrick Williams.
His sorry ass. He ain't do shit all year. Yeah.
Had Modest been starting at the beginning of the season, maybe we would have had a different season starting the year.
Maybe. And maybe Zach LaVine never gets traded. Who fucking knows?
Let me ask you this. Do you think any more coaches get fired after the playoffs is over? Do you think there's any more coaches that could potentially be on the hot seat?
I gotta look at shit. I gotta look at
if Houston loses to Golden State in the first round, do you think MA is out the door?
No, because of how far along they've come, and I also think Houston is especially nowadays, a more competent franchise with what they brought in.
Thunder, if they don't get out the first round, is their coach fired?
I think Dagnall would be on the hot seat. Absolutely. He would absolutely be on the hot seat. It would be a very hard decision for them. But
Dallas, if they don't make the playoffs, does Jason Kidd get fired?
I think that would have to be determined next year. And shit, I wouldn't be surprised if Nico Harrison made that move either, because I think he's just an absolute fucking idiot. But that's just me. I don't think.
I'm just saying, like, because I can think of more coaches and come up with more coaches.
For sure.
But my overall point is like, at some point, where do we draw the line on saying like coaches matter and good coaching matter? And when you have good coaching, sometimes you might need to stick it out with the coaches more than you are trying to stick it out with players.
Yeah, because here's the problem, man. It's that the ownership never realizes that these general managers never take accountability.
No.
and the head coaches just end up being the scapegoats. And that's the whole failure of the whole season.
Yeah.
When realistically, yeah, people get mad at Billy Donovan for maybe putting in certain guys, running certain rotations, things of that nature. But, man, I would say with what he had in front of him, he probably pulled off one of the most craziest things that could have happened with that team.
Yeah.
Like, with a lineup of Josh Giddey, Kobe White, Nikola Vucevic, Matas Buzelis, Patrick Williams, whatever the combination is, and to still be the 9th seed and have a home playing game after, the team was like the 12th and 13th seed at some point, pretty remarkable what happened after the All-Star break. But if they're going to sit here and tell me that, it's because the GM decided to trade Zach LaVine and then the young guys got to play more and this, I'm not buying any of that bullcrap. I think it's genuinely because Billy Donovan knew how to use his players at that time, but at the same time, if they had better players, which we saw with Zach LaVine, he doesn't know how to use his superstar players. That's why he never worked out in OKC with Russ. That's why when DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine were on the same team, for whatever reason, DeMar DeRozan always got the touches and not Zach. Zach had to be an off-the-ball player. This coaching carousel is going to be very interesting this offseason, and I think within the next year there's going to be even more coaches on the hot seat and also being rotated around the NBA. Shit, these coaches are getting moved around the league like they some fucking prostitutes.
Yeah.
It's crazy, man.
Yeah.
Like they're just on the corner of every street after every season.
Yeah.
There's always somebody that's a big name, like, oh my God, like what? You didn't see this shit happening 10 years ago, man.
Nah, you gave coaches a chance.
Yeah.
But it seems like that's not the case anymore.
Yeah.
But let's move on to the halftime predictions. All right. So some play-in games have been played already, Coach.
They sure have.
And we mentioned it. The Bulls lost. Sacramento Kings lost. Who else lost? The Atlanta Hawks lost, but they still have a chance.
And the Memphis Grizzlies
And the
lost.
Memphis Grizzlies lost, but they still have a chance. So now we're looking at a situation where Memphis will play Dallas for the 8th spot, and Miami will play Atlanta for the 8th spot. Who do you think ends up being number 8 in the West, and who do you think ends up getting that 8th spot in the East?
I think in the West, we see Memphis come out of the 8th spot.
So you think they beat Dallas?
I think they do beat Dallas on their home floor. I think they play a well-rounded game that they, which coming up soon, I believe. If it's not tonight, it's tomorrow. It might be tonight actually for that game. We'll see.
No, because Dallas just played yesterday.
Oh, okay. Then
So they'll probably
play
Friday.
tomorrow.
I think both of those games will probably just be Friday.
Probably. And then coming out of the East, I do think Atlanta should have a pretty easy time going over Miami. And Trae Young didn't get suspended for a game, right? He just
he just got ejected. That game.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think Trae Young's gonna put belt to ass on the Miami Heat. I also just think that that Atlanta Hawks team is a pretty solid team in general. Like I think they got some right players, and I think with Trae Young, kind of pushing the pack there and playmaking, distributing, and also creating for himself, I think Miami's gonna have a tough time preventing that from happening because they're not necessarily a high scoring team. They won't be able to match the output that Atlanta's going to give to them.
Yeah. I got Dallas making 8th. And
I think that's the upset I could see happening more than the other one. So I could see.
I got Dallas
too.
making 8th, and I got Miami making 8th. The reason why I got Miami is because I think Eric Spoelstra is going to out coach Quinn Snyder. And I think Atlanta is just kind of ready to get this season over with. I think they feel like they don't have their team at full strength. No Capella, no Larry Nance, no Jalen Johnson. And then they have to look at things this offseason. So I think they're kind of more so ready to kind of retailer this team and try for next season. So I think they're going to mail it in. I think it's going to be a good game, but I think Miami is going to pull that one out.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one for sure, though. Yeah.
And then Miami is probably going to get beat in 4 against Cleveland. Dallas, I see them beating the Memphis Grizzlies on their home floor because I think Dallas defense is going to step up in a major way. I think.
No, because Anthony Davis is back now, right?
Yeah, Anthony Davis is back, and he's been playing really good. And I think Dallas has figured out how to play big and fast at the same time. They don't have Spencer Dinwiddie as a starter, so they got Najee Marshall, they got Klay Thompson, they got Anthony Davis, and I think they got a few more pieces. So they're looking across the board somewhere between, I think the shortest person might be like 6'6". It actually might be Klay. He might be the shortest person on the floor. So I think that's going to work in their favor to be able to guard the smaller players in Desmond Bane and John Morant on the perimeter, which is the most two active players that Memphis has. I think the real key to whether or not Memphis can win will be Jaren Jackson Jr., whether or not Triple J can go out there and kill the Dallas Mavericks from his position. If he can go out there and have a big game, then I think that's the way that Memphis will win. But if you're banking on Desmond Bane and John Morant to be able to score and really do a lot of damage against these bigger forwards and guards that Dallas will have on the floor, I don't see that happening. So I think I like Dallas' chance, but I got a strong feeling that that'll be a game that goes to overtime. And Dallas will probably pull it out on their home floor in overtime. I see Anthony Davis having a big moment game to explain why he was traded for why Luka was traded for him.
Yeah, I think
this is a validation game for Anthony Davis and for the Dallas Mavericks. But I just see Miami beating Atlanta. I don't see much happening from there. So those are my predictions for that.
Cool. Yeah, I don't necessarily object to those.
Yeah. So let me add just really quickly: who wins between if Dallas makes it against the Thunder? Do Dallas have a chance to beat the Thunder?
They'll take a game, I think, but that's the most.
So you see a gentleman's sweep with them.
Yeah.
Do you think Memphis has a chance to beat the Thunder?
No. I think that's also a game at most.
Okay.
I just think OKC's too well built for anybody to actually put up a fight until the later rounds of the playoffs.
And you feel the same way about anybody, the AC in Cleveland? The East?
Yeah.
Whoever plays Cleveland.
Yeah.
For the most part, they might just only win one game.
Oh, yeah, especially since it's Atlanta or Miami. I don't think any of those teams would have put up a fight. I think Chicago would have put up a better fight against Cleveland than any of those other two teams, but yeah, I got Cleveland probably sweeping whoever comes through in that 8 seed.
All right, Coach. What episode is this?
This is episode 29, Coach.
Episode 29. As we wrap up,
forgot.
I just want to remind everybody again, as always, to like, subscribe to all of our channels, all of our socials from Instagram to TikTok. We'll probably be opening up a Facebook page at some point. That's the only thing that we don't have
right at this point. Right.
Yeah, so we might do that. We might not. We got a lot to do, so we may or may not do that. But follow us on Instagram. Continue to subscribe to us on YouTube. As always, we see you guys watching our clips. We see you guys watching our shorts. We see you guys watching the reels, but we need you to translate that to that subscribe button on YouTube. Also, we want to remind you guys that we do have a Patreon episode coming out this Sunday, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. Patreon episode coming out this Sunday. It's the halftime adjustments portion that we've done before. It's a great episode where we went over some of the things that happened in the college tournament from the national championship game and from the Final Four games that we saw. Just a recap from our position. From our perspective as coaches on what could have been done. So you don't want to miss that Patreon. But yeah, follow us on all of our on YouTube. We need that. We're waiting on a few of our subscribers and more of our subscribers to go up on YouTube before we start putting merch out and doing some more cool things. So yeah, get those likes up, get that subscriber base up so that we can do some more cool stuff and we can continue to bring you the best sports coverage on all digital platforms, which is the Halftime Podcast. And as always, we just want to end off with saying this is Coach Malcolm.
And this is Coach Conrad. But before we do end it, I just want to give a little quick special shout out to Coach Malcolm.
Not yet.
But I'd like to say it because it's going to happen. All right,
fine.
We're looking at the new universal head coach for the varsity basketball position. So shout out my guy. All right. I'm on his staff, hopefully.
No, I'm firing your ass right out the gate.
Yeah, but
I'm firing your ass right out the gate. No, just no, absolutely.
Yeah. So congrats to you, Coach.
I'm trying not to jinx it because I haven't signed anything officially, so I didn't want to say anything until I officially signed the contract that said this was going to happen. But it looks like it's going to happen.
Yeah,
it looks like it's in the works. But I didn't want to be too hasty because you know things change and politics is a motherfucker.
But nonetheless, Coach, congrats. It's been a long time coming. Definitely deserve it, and yeah, man, it's gonna be a hell of a ride. It's gonna be a hell of a ride, man. I'm excited. I'm excited.
It's gonna be fun. All right, again, this is the Halftime Podcast. This is episode 29. I'm Coach Malcolm.
And I'm Coach Conrad.
And as always, you know how it goes. See red and bear down, baby. Peace.